call in the middle of the night shattered the silence. Just 3 short words, it's all gone. I drove my Gladiator along the dirt tracks leading back to my uncle's farm. What lay before me was no longer the lush green of cornfields ready for harvest. Instead, it was a field severely devastated. Corn stalks lay flat. Young ears were chewed apart and scattered everywhere. My uncle stood there, silently watching the work of an entire season disappear. Every traditional method had failed. Electric fences had been smashed down. Noise and lights were nothing but a joke to this clever herd of wild boars. They moved like shadows, waiting patiently for the slightest weakness. It was time for a more systematic management approach. We didn't rush into control efforts for the sake of results. This was a long-term effort to restore peace to this place, including my uncle's family life. The entire morning was spent working with nearby landowners and reviewing local regulations. Permits, restricted zones, livestock protection measures, everything had to be completed properly. A mistake would not only lead to failure, it would also be irresponsible. Every action had to remain within the law and follow responsible wildlife management practices. Then came a reconnaissance phase. For 7 consecutive nights, we did nothing but observe through infrared lenses. Footprints, mud patches, movement hours, every habit of the wild boars was mapped and recorded. Our goal was to control and manage the herd scientifically, protecting crops, livestock, and community safety while minimizing unnecessary risk. Next came the most patience-testing stage, pre-bait. There was absolutely no room for cheap tricks. We used clean fermented corn, a scent no wild boar can resist. By creating a consistent feeding habit, we could gather the herd in an orderly way, preventing environmental disturbance and reducing the chance of them moving to other farms and causing new damage. Day 3, they only stood at a distance, sniffing cautiously. Day 5, the boldest ones began tasting. We kept observing until day 10. Hunger had defeated caution. They returned again and again, treating the place like their own safe dining ground. And when wild boars lose their guard, that is when the smart traps enter their waiting state. That night was the decisive moment. Camera systems streamed live footage back to the control center. We had deployed a network of traps suited to each terrain and herd size. In a large open field, a massive corral trap waited silently. Near the forest edge in a narrower area, a solid hexagonal trap stood ready. And along a narrow trail, a box trap sat firmly in position. Every trap in the system had been selected for safety, durability, and the ability to hold the herd steadily without causing unnecessary harm. The herd began entering the bait zone, dark shapes filling the monitor. My finger rested on the trigger button. My heart matched the rhythm of the footsteps. But I waited. A few were still wandering outside the perimeter. If I triggered the traps too early, they would escape and become far more cautious in the future. So I held my breath. Finally, hunger won. Now, the circular trap gate slammed down. On the adjacent screens, the hexagonal trap and box trap were also triggered as the herd moved fully inside. The sound of metal crashing echoed through the night. Once the system was activated, the herd reacted instinctively, moving intensely inside the trap zones. Thanks to the strong, standard-compliant design, everything remained under control. These traps were built to maintain stability under all conditions. The strength of steel became a shield protecting the peace of the fields. The full herd control strategy had succeeded. The efforts of the entire village were finally protected. After tonight, the village could sleep peacefully again. My uncle and I drove the Gladiator through the night before the siren, but we didn't go there to celebrate. This was the moment to collect the most important data: the exact trigger time, the number of individuals captured, and the movement routes the herd had just revealed. Protecting crops is a community effort. These findings would be shared with neighboring farms so they could adjust their own strategies, because wild boars constantly move across different lands. And so tonight, the cornfields were finally at peace. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, a humane processing procedure will be carried out in accordance with biosecurity standards. Protecting the environment, safeguarding livestock, and ensuring human safety always remain the top priorities. Because in the end, our goal is not just to react day by day. It is to build a long-term management system, responsible population control, proactive monitoring, and ecological balance. That is the sustainable solution for protecting crops and ensuring a safe coexistence between humans and nature.
Early in the morning, during a routine check around the farm, we noticed fresh soil torn up along the fence line. Deep hoofprints in the damp ground, combined with nighttime camera footage showing unusual movement, confirmed one thing clearly: wild hogs were moving in close to the cropland. They hadn't entered the field yet, but once hogs reach this distance, there is no room for waiting. In land management, delayed response often means heavy losses. Just one night, a single sounder of wild hogs can wipe out an entire season's harvest. It was time to act. Wild hogs are highly adaptable animals. They move fast, operate in groups, and constantly search for the smallest weakness in any defense system. One gap, one night, and an entire field can be destroyed. When hogs break in, the damage goes far beyond broken crops. Irrigation systems can be ruined, soil structure destroyed, roots torn out, losses that can affect multiple growing seasons. That's why prevention is always more effective than reaction. Deploying traps at this stage allows us to stay ahead of the problem, controlling risk before real damage occurs. At this point, chasing hogs away would only push the sounder to change direction and return later. Waiting would mean allowing the risk to grow beyond control. The chosen solution was to deploy a solid circular trap, placed directly along the travel route confirmed by both ground sign and camera footage. This approach is not about creating chaos or panicking the herd into running toward another area. On the contrary, traps allow the hogs to be contained within a defined space, minimizing risk to people, livestock, and surrounding property. The single objective is clear: stop wild hogs from crossing into cultivated land. The trap was firmly anchored into the ground. All locking points, connections, and overall stability were carefully checked before operation. Bait was placed precisely at the center, deep enough to force the hogs to fully enter the trap. There was no human presence left around the site, no unfamiliar scent. Everything was set up to allow the sounder to approach in the most natural way possible. Cameras continued monitoring throughout the night, confirming the moment the trap was triggered and ensuring the entire group was fully contained within the controlled area. Once activated, all exit points were immediately secured. The intrusion was stopped right at the fence line. The hogs could no longer root along the fence or search for a way into the field. The effectiveness of the trap wasn't in loud noise or confrontation, it was in stopping everything at exactly the right moment. Early the next morning, we returned to the site. The wild hog sounder was fully under control and transported according to regulations to a designated wildlife management facility. The process was carried out quickly and efficiently, ensuring safety for everyone involved while minimizing stress on the animals. All steps followed local wildlife management regulations strictly. Control is not just about stopping the problem, it's about taking responsibility for what comes afterward. It's not always necessary to wait until crops are destroyed before taking action. In many cases, deploying traps at the right moment is the deciding factor. Keeping a farm safe doesn't come from loud or aggressive actions. It comes from careful preparation, accurate decisions, and proper control from the very beginning. In farm management, acting at the right time is always more important than acting too late. Like and subscribe to continue following our journey. In just one night, an entire season's worth of work can vanish. Not because of weather, not because of pests, but because a sounder of wild hogs has decided this land is worth coming back to every single night. For a small farm, a season's harvest can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what's lost isn't just crops, it's the rhythm of a family's life. Once hogs mark a place as a safe food source, the question is no longer if damage will happen, but who takes back control first. Stick with us. We'll show you how that answer unfolds. It starts small, a few patches of torn up soil, broken rows, flattened plants. Then, the tracks show up. Same time, every night. Wild hogs don't move randomly. They return along familiar routes, stop at a distance, observe, and only move in once the area feels safe. If action isn't taken early, recovery costs will always exceed the cost of initial control, and the longer it goes on, the smarter the sounder gets. Instead of going all in from the start, the first move is strategic, setting up a small drop trap to study behavior. Wild hogs are highly cautious. This phase isn't about catching as many as possible. It's about reading the rhythm. Which hog enters first? Which hangs back? How long before the group reacts? Hit it wrong once, and you don't just lose a night. You lose the next opportunity. In wildlife control, understanding behavior is always worth more than rushing into action. Once herd behavior becomes clear, leaving the same setup too long allows the trap to be recognized, so the strategy evolves. The drop height is increased, the trigger time is shortened, the herd's reaction window is cut to a minimum. An elevated drop trap doesn't need to be more complicated, it just needs to be precise at the moment that matters. In areas where this method is applied, results are usually immediate. The herd has less time to scatter. Group instinct works against them. Multiple animals are held at once, and damage is stopped right at the hotspot. This is what happens when the timing and the method are right.
That's a big hole right there. And that would be the boar. Oh shit, grab the gun.
After successful captures, the trap continues to evolve. A cleaner release mechanism, a stronger frame without increasing cost, bait placement adjusted using real data. The goal isn't the biggest trap, it's the trap that fits the farm's exact conditions. Effective control doesn't come from scale, it comes from understanding the problem and refining the smallest details.
1, 9, 4, 5.
By cutting off the sounder in time, damage was reduced to a manageable level, and this land is no longer a nightly destination. More importantly, the farmer took back control through observation, discipline, and choosing the right moment. Don't chase the herd, lock down their route, and strike on the right beat. If you've dealt with wild hog damage, share your situation in the comments so others can learn from your experience. This content is for situational context and safety lessons only. It does not replace local guidance. Always follow local laws and work with experienced professionals. No gunshots, no headlights sweeping through the trees, just a phone vibrating quietly in the middle of the night. Close to midnight, a notification comes in from the home security system. Motion detected. Seconds later, the footage reveals a group of wild boars moving into the garden. They advance in a line, calm, methodical, no rush. This isn't the behavior of animals passing through by chance. It's the signature of a herd that knows this ground well. That tells us one thing clearly. This isn't a random visit. It's a well-established route. The real question now becomes, how do you stop the risk without putting people or the neighborhood in danger? Let's take a closer look. No one steps outside. Everything is monitored from inside the house, where decisions are made based on data, not instinct. A smart trap had been set weeks earlier, right along the trail the boars repeatedly used to approach the residential area. This wasn't guesswork. The location was chosen using night camera footage, tracks, and repeated movement patterns. The system combines night vision cameras, motion sensors, and a remotely controlled gate. Most importantly, it allows full control without direct contact, a critical factor when dealing with wildlife near homes. The herd pauses at the edge between forest and living space. They test the ground, root around, circle cautiously. A few individuals hang back, watching, reading the situation. This is the most dangerous moment. One wrong decision here, and the herd scatters, learns, and avoids traps forever. Then, one decision, timed perfectly. The gate drops cleanly. The herd is contained in a controlled space, fully separated from the neighborhood. No injuries, no noise. No one in the area even wakes up. A secondary camera deeper in the forest keeps rolling. Another group from the same herd changes direction. No panic, no chaos. They simply circle wider, searching for a new way in. That's textbook behavior when a familiar route is blocked. Instead of escalating force, a second trap is placed deeper, quieter, less obvious. The goal isn't speed, it's closing off re-entry completely and keeping the area stable in the nights ahead. What made that night special wasn't how many boars were controlled, it was when the decision was made. 30 seconds earlier, the herd could have split and spread. A few minutes later, fences, gardens, and living space might have taken real damage. Technology helps, a lot, but it can't replace human judgment or patience. The result came from preparation done long before, and a calm decision made at exactly the right moment.
We got Leafy Leaper over. People want a copy. But there they all are.
By morning, the garden is untouched. Proof that modern wildlife control is no longer about confrontation. It's about being proactive, safe, and responsible. This is what it looks like when humans manage conflict with intelligence and patience instead of panic. Situations like this will only become more common as the line between people and nature continues to shrink. In the next episode, we'll keep following how residential areas take control before conflict begins. Like, share, and subscribe to stay with us.